What if just 10 minutes a day could unlock the hidden potential God placed inside you? Small daily discipline may look insignificant, but it holds the quiet power to reshape the entire direction of a person's life. When you give just 10 minutes a day to focus your mind, your spirit, and your intention, you create a doorway through which growth, clarity, and divine strength begin to flow. Many people wait for motivation to arrive before they act. But motivation is unreliable. It rises and falls like waves. Discipline, however, is steady. Even when you don't feel inspired, even when you feel tired, even when your circumstances seem unchanged, those 10 minutes become a seed planted into the soil of your future. Seeds don't look powerful, yet everything powerful begins as one. A seed does not look like a tree, yet the tree is hidden inside it. In the same way, your destiny may not look impressive at first, but it is hidden inside the small daily choices you make. 10 minutes a day may not impress anyone around you, but it begins to impress something inside you. Your mind starts to shift. Your heart becomes more open. Your spirit becomes more sensitive to direction. You start gaining awareness of habits that drain your energy and thoughts that block your growth. A person who commits to a small daily practice becomes someone who refuses to stay stagnant. When you give consistent time to prayer, reflection, learning, or quiet focus, you begin to develop the inner strength that people around you can sense long before the results show outwardly. This is how small discipline creates big destiny. Because the internal transformation always comes before the external breakthrough. Most people ruin their potential not because they lack ability, but because they lack consistency. They take big steps once in a while, but then fall back because there is no rhythm maintaining their progress. 10 minutes a day sets that rhythm. It becomes the anchor that holds you steady even when life feels chaotic. When someone commits to 10 minutes every day, slowly they begin to realize that the point is not the length of time, but the direction of the heart. Those minutes become a reminder, I am still moving forward. I am still growing. I am still reaching. I am still becoming. The mind begins to form new patterns of focus. The spirit begins to recognize new possibilities. You start to think differently, and thinking differently is often the first sign of true transformation. Small daily discipline also has a way of stripping away excuses. People often say they don't have time to grow, but no one can say they don't have 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes expose whether you truly desire growth or merely enjoy talking about it. When you show up daily, even briefly, you are telling your future, I am preparing myself for you. You are telling your fears, you do not control me anymore. You are telling your potential, I am ready for you to awaken. Discipline builds identity, and identity shapes destiny. You become someone who shows up. You become someone who doesn't quit easily. You become someone who can be trusted with greater opportunities because you have proven faithful with small ones. Another hidden power of 10 minutes a day is that it multiplies. 10 minutes doesn't stay 10 minutes. Over time, it begins expanding on its own. What begins as a quiet practice grows into a desire. You begin to crave the peace. You begin to crave the clarity. You begin to crave the connection with God's guidance. Those 10 minutes begin to feel like a sanctuary, a place where your mind resets, your spirit strengthens, and your determination rises. Before long, 10 minutes becomes 15, then 20, then a lifestyle. But none of that expansion can happen until you commit to something small and keep it consistent. Your hidden potential is like a locked treasure chest. Many believe they need a large, complicated key to open it, but often the key is small and simple. The daily discipline of 10 minutes is that small key. It may not look like much, but it fits the lock of your destiny. Every time you practice it, you turn that key a little more, and eventually the chest opens. Inside, you begin discovering abilities you forgot you had, ideas you never considered, strength you didn't know was there, and confidence that was buried under years of doubt. Destiny doesn't reveal itself suddenly, it reveals itself gradually to those who show up consistently. The world celebrates big achievements, but heaven celebrates small faithfulness. Big achievements come later, small faithfulness comes now. When you honor the present moment by dedicating 10 minutes of sincere focus, you align yourself with the flow of growth. You position yourself for opportunities that only open to those who have trained their minds and hearts to be ready. 10 minutes of daily discipline teaches you not to underestimate yourself. It teaches you that you are capable of showing up, capable of growing, capable of becoming, even in seasons when everything feels slow. When you commit to small discipline, you begin realizing that the barrier between you and your potential was never time, ability, age, or opportunity. It was simply consistency. And once you conquer consistency in a small area, you can conquer it anywhere. Those 10 minutes begin unlocking areas of your life that have been stagnant for years. They awaken momentum, and momentum is the force that carries you into your destiny. When you consider the idea that 10 minutes of true purpose can accomplish more than years of scattered effort, it may sound impossible at first. But the truth is that transformation is not measured by the quantity of time you spend. It is measured by the quality of focus you bring. Many people spend years moving in circles, busy, exhausted, constantly active, but never producing meaningful change. They work hard but without clarity, pray but without intention, plan but without commitment. Their effort spreads thin like mist, disappearing before it becomes anything solid. But when you take even a small portion of time and direct it with intention, the impact becomes concentrated. Just as a magnifying glass can turn sunlight into fire by focusing it, your 10 minutes become powerful when you give them direction, sincerity, and expectation. Long, unfocused effort often becomes routine, a motion repeated without heart. 10 minutes of purpose, however, are alive. In those 10 minutes, your mind is fully present, your heart is fully engaged, your spirit is fully open. And when a person becomes fully present even for a moment, something extraordinary happens. Truth becomes clearer, solutions feel closer, and the path that once felt confusing begins to straighten. When you enter those moments with sincerity instead of obligation, you give space for divine guidance to break through the noise. Purpose opens doors that time alone never could. The human mind is not transformed by heavy effort, it is transformed by focused intention. Think of how a single sentence can change your perspective, how a single moment of honesty can break years of denial, how a single prayer can release a burden you carried for a decade. This is why 10 purposeful minutes can cut through years of confusion. When your heart aligns with truth, transformation doesn't need a long schedule, it needs a willing moment. Clarity doesn't come from force, It comes from openness. Strength doesn't come from endless striving. It comes from alignment. These 10 minutes each day align you with the direction you were meant to move in. When someone commits to 10 minutes of directed focus, they begin training their mind to return to what matters. Life throws distractions, emotions shift, circumstances change, but those 10 minutes anchor you. They remind you of what you want, who you are becoming, and what God is stirring inside you. Without this anchor, a person can drift for years without realizing they are off course. That is why people wake up one day and say, "How did my life end up here?" It didn't happen in a moment. It happened in small, unnoticed drift. 10 minutes of daily intention prevents this drift. It resets you. It recalibrates you. It sharpens you. It keeps your spirit awake. Years of unfocused effort are like running in a maze. You move, but you don't progress. 10 purposeful minutes are like stepping onto a clear path. You may walk slowly, but every step takes you closer to your destiny. Purpose gives direction, and direction gives meaning to every second you spend. In those 10 minutes, you reflect deeply, you listen clearly, you think honestly. And that honesty breaks illusions, excuses, and fears that may have controlled you for years. An honest 10 minutes with yourself and with God carries a power that thousands of distracted minutes never will. Another reason 10 purposeful minutes are transformative is that they create momentum. Momentum doesn't begin with massive action. It begins with consistent focus. Once your mind senses clarity, it begins pulling your behavior in that direction. Once your spirit senses peace, it begins releasing stress more easily. Once your heart senses possibility, it begins rejecting hopelessness. That shift doesn't require long hours. It begins with a few intentional moments that change your emotional and spiritual direction. Purpose creates momentum, and momentum leads to breakthroughs. 10 purposeful minutes also eliminate the heaviness of perfection. Many people never begin growing because they believe growth requires hours of effort. That belief becomes a wall they never climb. But when growth becomes simple, accessible, and practical, the mind relaxes. Resistance disappears. Transformation becomes something you step into, not something you fear. Because 10 minutes feel manageable, you show up. And when you show up repeatedly, growth becomes inevitable. This is why small, purposeful moments work when grand, inconsistent efforts fail. Consistency wins over intensity. The deeper truth is that purpose attracts grace. When you enter those 10 minutes with sincerity, divine strength begins to work through you. Ideas that seemed impossible begin to unfold. Solutions that once felt distant begin to appear. Peace begins to replace panic. Vision begins to replace confusion. God does not need a long schedule to speak or strengthen. He needs openness. 10 minutes with purpose becomes 10 minutes where heaven meets your heart. And one moment of divine alignment can achieve more than years of self-effort. People often confuse action with progress, but progress comes from clarity, and clarity can emerge in a single focused moment. 10 purposeful minutes each day sharpen your identity, strengthen your decision-making, and align your path with where you truly want to go. You don't need more years. You need more intention. You don't need more hours. You need more alignment. You don't need to rush. You need to focus. And when you focus even briefly, you begin activating a future that has been waiting for you to pay attention. That is why 10 minutes of purpose can do what years of unfocused effort never could. Stillness is not the absence of activity, it is the presence of awareness. When you take 10 minutes to quiet your mind, slow your breathing, and surrender your restless thoughts, you create a space where inner transformation can begin. Most people live surrounded by noise. Noise from responsibilities, noise from worries, noise from technology, noise from their own thoughts. In all this noise, the voice of clarity becomes faint, and the whisper of divine direction becomes difficult to hear. But in stillness, everything hidden rises to the surface. You begin to see your fears for what they truly are, shadows without substance. You begin to recognize your strengths that you forgot existed. You begin to feel the gentle pull of God guiding you toward the version of yourself you were meant to become. Transformation doesn't begin with movement, it begins with quiet surrender. When a person allows themselves to enter stillness, even for a few minutes, the inner battles they have been avoiding begin to calm. Anxiety slows down. Confusion softens. Emotional tension begins to loosen its grip. This is because stillness shifts your focus away from everything outside and brings it back to what's happening inside. And inside you is where all true change begins. You cannot fix what is broken outwardly unless you first understand what is happening inwardly. 10 minutes of stillness each day becomes a mirror, showing you the truth about your heart, your burdens, your longings, your potential, and your wounds. Seeing this truth may feel uncomfortable at first, but it is the very discomfort that leads to healing. Surrender is the next step. Surrender is not weakness, it is strength placed in the right hands. It is the moment you stop fighting battles that are not yours to fight. It is the moment you stop trying to control outcomes that only God can shape. In surrender, you say, I release what I cannot carry, and I receive what I was meant to receive. In those 10 minutes, when you surrender your fears, your doubts, your regrets, and your uncertainties, something remarkable happens. You create room for divine strength to enter. Your mind becomes lighter. Your heart becomes clearer. Your spirit becomes stronger. Surrender does not make you powerless. It frees you from what has been draining your power. As you repeat this daily practice of entering stillness and surrender, your awareness grows sharper. You begin to sense the movements of your own spirit. You begin to notice when negative thoughts try to take control. You begin to identify the patterns that have been holding you back. Habits of fear, habits of hesitation, habits of self-sabotage. 10 minutes of quiet reflection each day reveals what years of noise could never show you. Awareness is the beginning of transformation because you cannot change what you cannot see. And when God illuminates what is hidden within you, change becomes not only possible but inevitable. Stillness also opens a pathway for wisdom. When your mind is filled with constant chatter, wisdom has no space to enter. But when you quiet your thoughts, you begin to hear insights that were blocked by distraction. Solutions to long-standing problems begin to emerge. Ideas become clearer. The next step becomes visible. This kind of wisdom is not forced. It flows naturally when the heart is in a state of peace. 10 minutes each day becomes a well from which wisdom can rise. You drink from it and walk back into your day with a renewed mind and a refreshed spirit. The human heart was not designed to live in continuous tension, but many people carry tension for years without even realizing it. Tension from old wounds, tension from future fears, tension from unfulfilled expectations. Stillness is the environment where these tensions begin to dissolve. When you sit quietly and breathe with intention, the heart receives permission to release what it has held too tightly. In that release, emotional healing begins. Healing is not always loud, dramatic, or instant. Sometimes it is soft, gradual, and quiet. Those 10 minutes give your heart the space to heal at its own pace. In the daily practice of stillness, you begin recognizing the presence of God more deeply. Not in grand events, but in the quiet moments where His peace settles over you. You begin to sense His nearness, His comfort, His guidance. You start to realize that He has been with you all along, waiting for you to slow down enough to notice. In surrender, you allow His strength to replace your weakness, His clarity to replace your confusion, His peace to replace your anxiety. 10 minutes become a sacred meeting place where you encounter the divine not through effort, but through openness. This stillness also awakens your inner potential. Most people believe their potential is something they must chase, but true potential is something that awakens when the heart is aligned with truth. When you quiet yourself and listen, you begin to hear the calling inside you. The dreams buried under doubt, the confidence buried under fear, the courage buried under past failures. Stillness brings them to life. Surrender gives them the freedom to grow. You start to believe again. You start to hope again. You start to imagine again. And imagination is the birthplace of potential. When you commit to 10 minutes of stillness each day, you're not just building a habit. You're creating a doorway through which peace enters your mind, wisdom enters your decisions, strength enters your soul, and divine direction enters your path. In the quiet, the noise of the world loses its power, and the quiet voice of purpose becomes clear. Transformation begins not with striving, but with surrender. And in those peaceful minutes, you become aware of who you truly are, who you were meant to become, and who is guiding you every step of the way. Your breakthrough is never as far away as it feels. Most people imagine their transformation waiting somewhere in the distant future. After their circumstances change, after they have more time, after life becomes easier, after they become stronger. But destiny does not open for those who wait for the perfect moment. It opens for those who honor small moments. When you show up for just 10 minutes each day with sincerity and focus, you are stepping into the flow of growth. These 10 minutes may feel simple, but they carry the power to shift your direction, strengthen your spirit, and ignite the dormant potential that has been sleeping within you. It is not the size of your action that brings the breakthrough. It is the consistency of your heart. There are people who pray for years, but never pause long enough to hear the answer. People who dream big, but never create a daily rhythm that supports those dreams. People who desire change, but postpone it to one day. Yet change rarely arrives in big dramatic moments. It begins quietly, like a seed sprouting beneath the soil. 10 minutes of daily commitment is the watering of that seed. At first, you don't see anything happening. It feels like nothing is changing. But beneath the surface, your mindset is shifting, your spirit is strengthening, and the path ahead is becoming clearer. Growth is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. What makes your breakthrough close is not the situation outside, but the readiness inside. When you give yourself 10 minutes a day, you are training your heart to become ready. Ready to notice opportunities. Ready to respond to direction. Ready to release what has been holding you back. Readiness is what makes the difference between someone who watches life happen and someone who steps into their God-given purpose. Those 10 minutes build readiness like nothing else. They create mental clarity. They deepen spiritual awareness. They strengthen emotional resilience. They align your steps with your intentions. A person who shows up consistently is a person who becomes ready for doors they once felt unqualified for. There is a powerful shift that happens when you commit to small actions. Your identity begins to change. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is waiting for life to improve. You begin to see yourself as someone who is actively growing, actively preparing, actively becoming. Identity is the quiet engine behind destiny. When you start to identify as someone who shows up, even briefly, your confidence grows. You start believing that change is possible for you, not just for others. Hope becomes more than a feeling, it becomes a mindset. And once hope takes root, breakthrough becomes inevitable. Most breakthroughs don't arrive suddenly. They accumulate. They build through months of unseen discipline, tiny choices, and moments of clarity. The day the breakthrough appears is simply the day all those quiet moments add up and reveal what has been forming inside you. 10 minutes each day may feel too small to matter, but 10 minutes multiplied over weeks and months becomes hours of transformation. It becomes a new way of thinking, a new way of responding, a new way of living. You begin to make decisions with more wisdom. You begin to speak with more confidence. You begin to walk with more peace. These qualities do not fall from the sky. They develop through consistent attention. What makes these 10 minutes so powerful is the shift they create in your emotional and spiritual posture. Instead of living in reaction, reacting to problems, to stress, to fear, you begin living in intention. Intention transforms the way you approach your day. It makes you more conscious of the thoughts you entertain, the habits you repeat, and the choices you make. Breakthrough is not just a moment of change. It is the result of countless intentional moments that strengthen your inner world until your outer world begins to reflect it. 10 minutes a day builds that inner strength, one moment at a time. Another reason your breakthrough is closer than you think is because God often works in ways that are subtle at first. You may expect a loud sign, a sudden miracle, or an obvious shift. But God's movements are often gentle whispers, quiet nudges, small confirmations, and unexpected peace. In 10 minutes of stillness and focus, you become more sensitive to these subtle movements. You start noticing possibilities you previously ignored. You start recognizing blessings you once overlooked. You start feeling clarity in decisions that once has confused you. Sensitivity to divine direction is often what places you in the right situations at the right time. 10 minutes opens that sensitivity. When you show up every day, even for a short time, you prove to yourself that you are not stuck. You are not hopeless. You are not stagnant. You are in motion, and motion creates momentum. Once momentum begins, breakthroughs often follow closely behind. Because momentum shifts your energy, your thinking, and your expectation. You begin expecting good things instead of fearing disappointment. You begin looking forward instead of looking backward. You begin seeing the future as an opportunity instead of a threat. These shifts might seem small, but they are the very foundation of breakthrough. Your breakthrough is close because every day you show up, you are moving toward it. Even on days when you feel tired, even on days when you doubt yourself, even on days when nothing seems to change, consistency builds what emotion cannot. Commitment builds what motivation avoids. And small daily steps build what massive occasional effort can never accomplish. You do not need to wait for the perfect season. You do not need to wait for everything around you to improve. You simply need to commit to the next 10 minutes. Because inside those minutes, you are not just practicing a habit, you are unlocking your future.